Welcome to the Cinephile Hissy podcast, the tirade film movie debate podcast hosted by two film critics, cool dads, and struggling end of the year countdown the days teachers. I'm the veteran, jaded Don Shanahan.
And I'm almost done with my rookie year, William Johnson.
To be in your place, man. To be in your place. Folks, we're damn glad to have you. This is all for tantrum's sake, where shared passions and high fives wash away any place for hate. In the end, we encourage you all to love what you love, but love what I love. It's more than what Will loves. But for now, the gloves are off and the hissy fit is on. This week, in honor of Emma Stone stepping into Cruella de Vil, we've been circling this one for a while, but now we've got kind of reason to plug it in. Last week, we talked about Joker. This week, with Emma Stone coming into Cruella, we've got her Oscar-winning performance in La La Land. This film's been, see there, the giggles come out. This film was recommended by myself as the favorite and person who gave it a high marks review. Our format for our hissy fit is this. The recommending lover goes first. That's me. I get 5 uninterrupted minutes to shower my praise and state my high-minded case as a bowler hat wearing critic all of a sudden. The hater, Will, the rookie Johnson, follows with 5 uninterrupted minutes of his own to present his counterpoints with any manner of intellectual, he didn't even rewatch the movie, folks, scorched earth. After that, we open up for 15 minutes of shared conversation where the hissy fit really gets chippy, and I feel like this is going to be one of those good ones. We hope you've got your judge's scorecard. I got my gloves on. Folks, let's go. Will,
okay,
happy Sunday.
Unlike Samuel L. Jackson, who admitted without admitting, even as an Academy voter, that he only watched 20 minutes, or in his words, he could only make it through 20 minutes of La La Land. I've actually watched the film before. Now, yes, you do criticize me for not rewatching this. However, I did do a lot of homework. I think many, listeners will know that sometimes I say things that aren't true. Like last week when I said that there was more Academy Award winners for the role of the Joker than Black Academy Award winners, and I remember for Best Actor, and I remember when that came out of my mouth, I went, "Oh, well, I can think of 4 or 5 off the top of my head," and you immediately jumped on me, and so I am going to be talking about something a little bit sensitive today, so I made sure to have sources and all kinds of stuff. Like, I'm using the English teacher in me to back up my arguments this week, so I do not make a fool of myself.
Now we're talking. Look at you go. All right. Well, you do homework for this as the brains of the operation. I'm just happy you're here. All right, sweet. 5 minutes, huh? All right.
Yeah, let's hear this.
This pleading case of love. All right, here we go.
Let's do it.
Set this timer. Bells on. Here we go. All right, folks. Well, for those of you who follow my work on 25YL, I'm a film critic in that kind of way, but I got my start and still write on my own website, which is called Every Movie Has a Lesson. And as a school teacher here, that's kind of the lens that I can't remove in terms of watching films, where I always try to find the things that a film can teach. And I think La La Land, for me, as the website says, every movie has a lesson. I kind of picked out 3 in my old review of La La Land. I was going to kind of bring them up here as just kind of the substance that goes into that goes deeper than just the flashiness of what this film is. And from what I see in La La Land, I see 3 big things that are kind of thematic beyond the filmmaking. Filmmaking to me, off the charts, amazing. We'll get to that later. But one thing I see is the wavering perseverance of the struggling artist. You've got 2 characters here in Sebastian and Mia who kind of brim with wanton desire to create and express themselves. They face more rejection than success, and they feel the pressure to kind of mature and find a more profitable kind of career. They're struggling artists. Now, I'm not saying this is Inside Llewyn Davis by any means, and I hate that movie, and that's probably another conversation for another day. See, here he goes. But struggling artists encounter a lot of tipping points, whether they acknowledge them or not, that either push them to quit or push them to pursue and strengthen their resolve to achieve. And this movie's got that. And I find that a buddy of mine was kind of commenting on my post about this movie, watching last night. He's like, I kind of wanted more musical with my movie, or I wanted more musical in my musical. And I'm kind of cool that this movie is more movie than it is musical, or has enough movie to be there. And by the time we have these career arcs going, we also have this second kind of big point that I kind of enjoyed, which was the competition between personal lives or personal loves and romantic loves, because loves and careers always don't always mix. And it's, don't get me wrong, it's wonderful if you have someone or a partner in your life that also has a professional role they're passionate about. But sometimes there's not enough energy to kind of commit or dedicate oneself fully to both. And it could be kind of a choice of which success they're willing to settle for, or which person receives that success. And it's not necessarily that it's old husband wife male female roles of who needs to be the breadwinner, who needs to be the success story, but there's, I think, people in our lives that kind of bring us to those places that their loves we left behind, whether it's a personal one or a romantic one. And I feel like La La Land has that, and it impresses me. And then, since we're always a spoiler alert for a movie that's over 5 years old here, to loop all that together, I also see places where fantasies rarely become reality. And, as dayglow and amazing as this movie is, it has a strong heart to it that has some reality, where not everything can be fantasy, or not every fantasy is going to work. And to kind of go from the wavering perseverance and the competition between loves, we have people who envision fantasies in both their personal and professional lives. But when someone starts a new job, they might picture themselves being the best, the most unencumbered of what they do, in the same way that a new spouse promises they'll be the best possible man or woman. La La Land plays with those flights of fancy and big dreams on screen, with all the kind of woulda, coulda, shouldas in between. And I love that about this movie, in that we have fantasies that are competing here, but at the same time, reality is ready to kind of bring them back down. We have plenty of fun in that fantasy, and it's a beautiful thing. But both in the film and in our own lives, reality kind of swoops in and reminds us that the world has limits, and some of those limits are our own flaws and shortcomings. And I feel like this movie could have been way, for as much as it is applauded for the sunniness of it all, and the setting of LA, and the love letter that it is to old genres, and the meaning of mediums, and all the homages that are possible, ranging in all kinds of places. At the end of it, we still have, a story of a guy and a girl, and it doesn't work out. And I'm not saying it's the longest breakup movie in the world, but I think we have a filmmaker who not only gets the charm of the mediums and things that he's homaging, but he gets real life, in that not every fantasy is going to be. I think this movie would be too easy if the guy gets the girl and it all works out. I think we would hate this movie even more than we do. But for this one to have a vibrant reality beyond all the amazing showiness, it's really something really good. And not only good, I think it's a great film, and one of the best of the decade. And with 3 seconds to go, that's me.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Interesting.
I know.
No, I like that argument. I like that argument.
Okay.
Is my timer started?
I can start it when you say go.
All right, let's do it because I
All
got a
right.
lot to do, and I don't know if I'll get it in time, but we'll do my best.
I always give you bonus minutes. You fire away.
Okay, so everything that you said is very valid. I think that I want to make it very clear here that when I talk about La La Land, I don't want to seem like I'm trashing the filming process or the performances or anything like that. I think that Emma Stone is fine. I don't know if it was an Oscar-winning performance, but whatever. Um, I like Ryan Gosling, especially when he's comedic. I think he's in two of my all-time favorite movies. One is a very serious actor, Blade Runner 2049, and one in which he is comedic gold, which is The Nice Guys, which we may talk about on this show soon. Um, but I have one major thing here, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the pitchforks to come out with people saying that I'm woke or an SJW. But okay, so here's my main issue, and we've talked about this on the show. Sometimes we obviously I can't remember where Don's stance is on Green Book, um,
Hmm.
but I have a problem with 4 minute long Best Picture winner La La Land because it was Best Picture for about 4 minutes before they realized Moonlight was the actual winner. But so it's technically like a Best Picture winner for a couple minutes. Um, my problem is, and I don't think this is intentional, I don't think Damien Chazelle, who's very talented. I enjoyed Whiplash. First Man is excellent. I don't think that he's intentionally like promoting any of these values that I'm going to be talking about. But I do think that when you kind of have a Harvard educated white rich man being in charge of his fantasies, I think that there becomes almost a subconscious act of white privilege being on display here in this film. And that's my biggest complaint about it. Is it wonderfully crafted? Is it beautifully set designed? Is the cinematography excellent? Is this the plotting and the pacing? And I mean, I could argue about the music. I find the music completely unmemorable and the dancing kind of whatever. But I mean, it looks nice. It's a nice looking film. So I did some research on this because I didn't want to rewatch the film. But I remember always being a little put off by what I felt was kind of a white savior narrative. Now, me and Don have argued about this in the
Mm.
past, and he vehemently disagrees with me. But here's what I did when I researched that because I wanted to make sure it wasn't just me thinking this. So I primarily looked for articles written by African American men. I did find some written by white men too, or women. Um, the first one that I kind of came across uh, actually went into a direction I wasn't expecting. It was this is a white man named Jeff Nelson, but he wrote an article for Paste magazine called "The Unbearable Whiteness of La La Land." The subtitle of the article was "What does Damien Chazelle hope we see when we look back?"
Mhm.
Basically, what we have to remember, and this is where things could get sensitive here for people that are listening, but this movie came out during a very, very rough time in terms of political landscape and racial. Um, we were kind of taking a
This
um,
was like Baltimore and Ferguson, wasn't it? 5 years ago, right?
yes, yes. So we're looking at a very there's a lot of racial disharmony. We've got leaders in the American government that are openly anti-black, anti-immigrant, So there's a lot of stuff. Now, this article by Jeff Nelson does a lot of interesting things. It talks about the idea of nostalgia.
Mhm.
Um, and this film is a very nostalgic film. It tries to go back to the Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire kind of aesthetic, and maybe it does that on a technical level, and that's fine. But the idea of nostalgia is in itself a white privilege concept because if you're trying to revisit the past, you have to remember that for people like Ryan Gosling or Emma Stone, being in the 40s or 50s probably wasn't that big of a deal, or the 30s or 20s or whatever you want to call it, whatever the time period is, 40s, 30s. Um, but this idea that, especially when you start tying in the idea of jazz, which is a very African American um, art form, um, it becomes a little tricky because it's like, yes, I like living in the past. I like having those feelings of the past, but I'm a white man. You know, what was the what was the 30s, 40s, and 50s like for black men or black women? Jeff Nelson brings up an interesting point here. He says that during this time period we were talking about, with all this upheaval going on with politics and racism, whites at that time, majority of them thought life was better in the 50s, whereas blacks thought life was better now. So I find that interesting
Sure.
that we have that. Did 5 minutes go by already?
That was fine. I'm just giving you the bell. Finish your
Okay.
point. You're good. I got you.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to talk that long about
I
just the
knew
one
you
article, but
once you started, I knew you were gonna talk that long.
okay. So allow me a little extra time here for this. But
Fire away.
so I looked at that and I thought, okay, fine, nostalgia. That's an interesting point. I felt kind of the white privilege part there. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote an article for the Hollywood Reporter
Mhm.
called "How La La Land Misleads on Race, Romance, and Jazz."
Okay.
Now, here's the thing: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually praised the film. He said it was an excellent film, so it's not like he's trashing the film.
Sure.
However, he
I've read
brings
this
up
article.
he brings up the concept of isolating race.
Sure.
He says that the most egregious aspect is that we have a white person in Ryan Gosling who is essentially acting as a white savior in a sense because he feels that he is the one that must save jazz from the uh, whatever you want to call them, the what's the word I'm looking for?
The oblivion that it's kind of falling into as an out of favor musical genre.
Yes.
Sure.
Or the worst case scenario, which is what he brings up, is the fact that we have one black character in the film, really, and he represents the um, antithesis of jazz. He represents the sellout. This is the John Legend character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we're talking
Yeah.
about an art form that was formed by African American pain and passion, and we're representing that with one black character who is selling that idea out.
Yeah.
And
See,
that's
I
what kind of
can't. Yeah, I can't take John Legend's character that way. And I'll here. You finish where you're going, and I'll
yeah.
pile on.
Yeah, he also Abdul Jabbar also mentions a couple other things about ambition and love. He mentions, and this is kind of what you were going with about how
Mm-hmm.
it's like they're not meant to be together. He mentions in his article that it seems like the film draws a line that you can either be ambitious or fall in love. You can't have both, and he thought that was a little cynical. I also thought that was kind of more tone deaf from the director's point of view as well. I think that there's kind of a let's just throw out the racial stuff. There's
Sure.
kind of a magical thinking that like you can achieve your dreams, but you'll have to sacrifice one or the other. And I don't think everything's that black and white.
Oh, everything isn't, but there are cases where that has happened, and I'm okay with a case like that happening on screen in a story that sells it and pushes it in that way.
Yeah.
All
And
right, here.
my last bit, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I said my last bit was there was an article by Ira Madison III. I forgot. It was from MTV. He's a
Okay.
black man as well. He wrote an article called La La Land's White Jazz Narrative. And there
Mm,
was this whole concept of what real jazz is. And it kind of repeats a lot what Kareem Abdul Jabbar was saying, which is, we're having, when I look up the definition of white savior, now, like, this is what I'm saying. I want to make it very clear.
yeah.
I do not think Damien Chazelle is some kind of racist. I think he's more tone deaf than anything else. I think in the time period where this film comes out, that nostalgia for the past, that main character, which he probably sees as himself because he's such a jazz fan in real life,
True.
it just rings very hollow to me.
Mm,
It says the white savior is often portrayed as a man who is out of place within his own society until he assumes the burden of racial leadership to rescue non-white minorities and foreigners from their suffering. Now, I'm transporting the actual
right.
black people with the experience of their creation, which is jazz. Um, but to me, that just rubs me the wrong way because it feels like he's like, I'm
Okay.
the only one who really understands this. So I must save this art form.
Yeah.
And, there's some more things I can get into, but I'm not going to. But
Okay.
yeah, that's my main conceit is that I think that some of the emotional standpoints are that you brought up are a little too broad or black and
Mm,
white. And then I think that there is a unintentional, kind of like a Green Book or a Crash, that
yeah.
won Best Picture in whatever year that was.
Hmm.
Um, they have good intentions, but I don't think they're. I mean, Crash is probably a little bit worse because their intention was to point out
Oh
racial
yeah, I agree.
stuff, but I don't think it was racist. I just think it was badly done. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I think this is just one where it's a little bit tone deaf from a white man talking about a black form of art.
Sure.
That's where my main problem comes
And
into play.
I'll send you back the same thing I told you off the air when we had this discussion, which became the episode of the show.
Yeah,
Was if that's what you got out of this movie, you missed the
yeah.
whole fucking point of the movie.
Okay, all
So
right.
here's where this goes. One, here I'll just do the John Legend thing. This is the easiest thing. John Legend, the performer he plays in the movie, is a guy who takes the boring part of jazz that, and unfortunately, the genre has become, maybe even because of white people who've joined in with the music it is, to be more
Mhm,
of an innovator to kind of change it up a little bit, add a modern thing to it. He admits that jazz is that kind of thing that young people don't listen to. So he's going to make a kind of music with jazz influences that people will listen to. And he gets Ryan Gosling to kind of see that and even participate in it. And it changes him in terms of the kind of jazz he's willing to work for and accept and not quite be the sellout. I see more innovator than I see sellout. I see Ryan Gosling as a sellout who realizes maybe I was a little too strict and one noted in the way I see jazz. At the same time, I can use this as a darn good job to reinvigorate myself to make the jazz club I want and kind of be, yeah, I could say a layer of white privilege. We got to eventually, by the end of this movie, he's a white business owner doing a great thing with jazz, and we can
mhm.
use more venues like that. But That's why I come back to jazz. And jazz, yes, while being an originally an African American art form, to me, we're back to music where music is can be shared and be universal, where that could be something we all can enjoy. Now, its roots are where its roots are, and blues can be right there with it. But to
Mhm,
say that it can only be, and I don't want to sound like a Martin Scorsese style gatekeeper in any way, but
mhm, mhm,
I think the involvement of John Legend and the care and consideration taken into the music and the angles of which it's being used in a modern way, I don't, I get no, I don't get, I will not. Well, here, let me say it like this: I don't see the white savior vibe at all. Is it a
mhm,
guy who's just really into jazz and he just happens to be white? Sure. Now, I'm not going to say he's the Eminem of jazz, but at the same time, it's not that simple and it's not that blunt either. But no, I have a guy who likes jazz, who likes maybe a pure, different form of jazz than what the modern audiences are today. He's trying to get his girlfriend to like it. If anything, he's guilty of mansplaining more than he's guilty of being a white savior or a jazz savior.
mhm, mhm,
Um, I think you have an art form that is big enough and broad enough and accepted and created by enough people, black and white, that I don't think there's that much. I don't know. I don't want to say patriarchal, but I don't think there's that much ownership on jazz anymore. And especially when you get to the point of you have the John Legend character going, "Hey, it can't be that old crap anymore. We need to change it up a little bit." And you, being a jazz lover of tradition, can bring some of that and still change it up. And I think you get growth in the music area as much as you get in the love and relationship area in this movie, where same thing, like I kind of go back to the same blunt way I'll answer you. If your biggest hangup of this movie is a white guy who likes jazz, you missed the whole fucking point of the movie, which is the life, the ambitions, the dreams, the reality, the fantasies, and the mansplaining he does to his girl. Now she will
right,
woman-splain right back to him why she's into acting in movies. And you have that coarseness that comes in some relationships where puppy love isn't enough. You have to have some passionate enjoyment or some mutual passions in between. And those two places conflict in this movie enough where there's moments where they can't cheerlead each other enough, but at the same time they don't sink each other enough, and that's okay. But yeah, I can't make that leap that you make in terms of being a white savior narrative and all that. Is it a white privilege narrative? I'll grant that.
mm,
Because
mm,
yes, this is a white girl barista who, through enough scrapping and enough struggle, scrapes together, gets success, enjoys that success, has become the epitome of success by the end. We have a white guy who likes jazz who, still has an apartment. He's not super unemployed. I know he's getting by doing, lame,
well, not
party part.
really. Not really. Doesn't pay his bills
No,
because
he
he's
doesn't pay
so
his bills. He loses gigs because of his ambition for the music he likes. And we've seen, like I said, that's more Llewellyn Davis. We've seen the struggling artist before, and he's not an egregious form of that at all.
sure.
And to do that all right, to take all of those realities and intentions about the music and about the culture that's on display and to distill and filter that through a guy that doesn't get the girl musical, I think you can do that in this day and age and not be an affront to a whole history of things. Also, and I'm going to sound like a white guy who says, "Hey, you can stop arguing about it already," and that's a really bad way of saying it, and I don't mean to say it like this, but it always can't be dwelling on the bads of the past, because this
Mm,
is a musical with nostalgia, with hope, and with innovation, where I can't lean on the 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 bad origins of jazz or the bad experience of a racial demographic just to here. The bluntest way I could say this is not every modern movie is going to solve the past problems, and this is a movie that's not attempting to do that whatsoever in my eyes. So that's not giving the movie a pass. I think that's just me understanding the scope and intention of where the movie's going and where it's coming from. Now, I'd say that full privilege of my own as a white male, where I can see, yeah, I for me this is a movie with love story first,
mhm,
innovation and art second. The complaints that are possible, I think, are really grasping and reaching, projecting for things that the movie wasn't going to attempt in any way to fix, solve, or to I don't want to say acknowledge, because I think that's enough there in terms of where jazz is and where struggling artists go. But this movie wasn't gonna is not trying to save or solve jazz. No movie's going to do that. No movie.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I
So
suppose that's true. Yeah.
if we're what he's going for, and this is where I get to the special features in the disc, and it helped me a lot, was Chazelle's trying for umbrellas of Cherbourg and colorful
Mm,
musical more than he's trying for jazz. Jazz just happens to be the mode of transportation, and I think he
mm,
puts. And like I said, I think with the presence of legend and the innovation in mind of calling back to old jazz, but recognizing, hey, new jazz has a place where it can go and still honor both is enough. And I'm the guy toe tapping the songs in this movie. I'm the guy really enjoying the romance, and I thought Emma Stone knocked the ball out of the park, showing the women's and the actress side of this, where this isn't a. That's another place where the male part of this goes away, where this movie's passing a Bechdel test in terms of female centered narrative, and we get that, and she doesn't always need the man, and I'm happy with that.
mm.
And there's,
Yeah,
but I get that there's whimsy there for sure. But no, I
yeah.
can't dive where you're diving, man.
I don't have a problem with the love story. I actually really enjoy the. Um, we were talking about how adult the film is.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really enjoy the final sequence.
Oh
That
yeah.
was the most effective to me
Mm-hmm.
because I think about that stuff all the time in my own life. I think about the road that didn't take
Yeah,
the path, and I love the fact
right
that
there
they
with you.
kind of had this moment where it looked at what could have been versus what is now, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed stuff like that, and that really affected me, and I thought that was a very powerful piece, and
Mm-hmm.
I think coming at the end of the film, it worked for me. And this is somebody who did not like the film, and it worked for me. So I can imagine if you're really in love with the film, this really hits home for you.
Yeah. Here's
Yeah, I don't
the
know what
next
it
thing.
is.
The next thing that
Yeah,
saves it for me is Gosling. I don't think Gosling takes this white savior narrative. I don't think he would be in a movie like that. Maybe I'm putting way too much trust in a Canadian like Gosling and a young ambitious director like Chazelle, but and I don't want to call that woke, but I think that's just wise enough and sharp enough and intelligent enough from an actor and a writer and a performer to just not make that movie. I think Ryan Gosling would see a movie like that because I look at Ryan Gosling's filmography and the hard shit he's done. He's done neo
sure.
Nazis, he's done murders, he's done crazy stuff. He hasn't taken fluff parts anywhere. So
Right.
I think he takes this movie not only as an artistic and a creative challenge, because you hear about him learning piano and all that stuff like that. I don't think he takes a movie like this to be woke or to prove some point. And because of that, I don't think the filmmaker's going there either.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think the filmmakers are intentionally doing this.
Yeah, because I don't
I
think it
just have
even
a
landed as that.
I I I just have a sensitivity to this because
Mm,
I don't know what my sensitivity to it is, but I feel like I want to embrace. We're still at a point in this. If we were in this country right now where everything was racial harmony and everything would be great, I would
that's
agree with
fair.
you that.
Yeah.
But the problem is that especially when it comes to music, because the problem is, I'm a social studies teacher as well, and I've
Hmm.
been teaching about the Harlem Renaissance and stuff like that.
There you go.
The foundation of jazz and black music and black sculpture and black art is it came from their ability to escape the South, where they were constantly under the thumb of the white people,
Sure.
do the Great Migration, and go to these more accepted places. Not they weren't great, but they were
No,
better.
no. And
Um,
more opportunity for sure in the North, you bet.
and they had this ability, especially in places like Harlem, where they basically had 3 square miles to themselves to nurture their stuff. Now,
Hmm.
we all know in the history of black arts that it usually gets um, what do you call it?
It's
Taken
not.
over
Ah.
by a white audience. And
Eh,
there's a line in Black Panther, if you
sure.
remember,
You need
where
you need a wide audience to be Panther. Well, you have to get an audience, and when racial demographics have the majority of a country be white, you have to get white audiences. This even came up in like One Night in Miami, where Malcolm X calls out, oh gosh, I'm going to forget the character already. Jerry, not Jerry Butler. You send me Sam Cooke, played by
mm,
Leslie Odom Jr., where Malcolm X says, you're kowtowing to the white audiences, and Sam Cooke is quick to go. That's how I make my money, and I'm not ashamed of it. So I see,
sure,
I know where you're going with this, and I'll be the one that says the easiest, like, I don't want to say like Matthew McConaughey in the end of A Time to Kill, but can a white guy enjoy that too and understand that and respect that and still make the art without taking it over? Because that's the thing, like, Gosling's character isn't taking it over. He just likes enough that he wants to see more of it.
I
He'd love to take
suppose,
over.
yeah.
He'd love to take over a club, but he's not trying to save it. I can't. The unemployed bum is not going to save jazz, but he can love and respect it enough to see it performed well and want it performed in a great way and bring some innovation to it. And I think Legends, the arc with Legend, can help him see that, like, hey, it could be done a different way than the old fashioned way, but you can still honor the old fashioned way at the same time. I just, I agree
But
with you.
then
I
again,
agree
he
with you
quits
that this
though.
stuff's been I agree with you that this stuff's been taken over before. It just isn't taken over in this movie.
Well, because I think of things like Chuck Berry versus Elvis Presley.
Sure.
Who ended up getting the majority of that, and then now I think we're seeing more of a because we're a little bit we have more access to things, and we
Hmm.
have the ability to digest things from the past that maybe we couldn't see. I mean, a lot of people
Sure.
that listen to Elvis Presley, were they inherently racist because they listened to Elvis Presley? No.
Yeah.
Did they know that a lot of Elvis's stick came from somebody else? No, because it wasn't
Hmm.
as big out there as it was before. Yeah, I can. You know what?
But
I will concede this point. I'll concede.
yeah.
Hold on one second. I'll concede this point because I don't find the same problem that I'm having with La La Land or I should say, I don't have the same problem with Back to the Future that I do with La La Land, and
Okay.
maybe that's my problem because yes, if I was truly a very woke person, I would be like, well, Marty McFly created black rock and roll, like
Sure.
so. What I guess what I have to try to figure out is why do I see? Is it because that we weren't as aware of these kind of issues? Because like I said,
Uh,
I think
sure.
both of these situations, both the Marty McFly, the Marvin, it's your cousin Marvin or your
Hmm.
brother Marvin Barry. Listen to this,
Yeah. Yeah.
like if I
I
don't
think
have a
that's a
problem with
dumb joke
that,
thrown into a movie,
right?
and it happens in 3 seconds and it's over. Whereas you have a Ryan Gosling character that I think is keyed in enough and educated enough about the history of
Mhm.
jazz to honor it without not just honor it, but let's enjoy it and respect it versus just a takeover artist. I don't see a takeover artist in that character anywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because
Okay.
in the end, he rejects John Legend and creates his own thing because
Or
he says,
we,
"I
we got our
can't
five
do
years later
this."
thing, but yeah, yeah. He
Well,
spent
because
enough
he's like,
time to
"I
make his
can't."
money, but
Yeah, but he's like, "I can't sell out anymore," is basically
true.
what he's saying, and I think that was kind of the issues that were brought up in some of these things.
Hmm.
So I guess I have to try to figure out, okay, what yeah, so, there's also the Rolling Stones took a lot of stuff from black artists and things
Sure.
so what I'm saying is and then even in my heyday when I was in high school, I mean, we had new metal, which was like rap and rock. You had
Hmm.
mostly white men kind of taking on this persona of the quote unquote urban black,
Sure.
like Limp Bizkit, like where they have the backward New York hats and the baggy jeans and and
Oh
all this
yeah.
stuff where it's almost like I guess what makes me sensitive to it is that there's kind of this co-opting of black culture. And even though I don't think they do it on purpose, I think that it just rubs me the wrong way.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I just kind of feel like if I really want to grasp the jazz experience, I would prefer to have it from a black voice.
Sure.
Because
And
so
I guess I'll be the one that says that music form has been around long enough and survived enough, if we shall say, takeover artists and
yeah,
colonization, that I think it all has become available and welcome to all. Where, especially, maybe maybe this is easier in jazz than it is in rap or rock,
mhm.
or even country, where jazz is fluid enough and creative enough and performer centered, where because it's not verses and singing songs and poetry of words that come from hearts and things like that. It's just I'm this good with instrumentation, let's roll. And the improvisational sense of jazz, where I think if there's a musical genre where a melting pot of collected collected tastes and collected angles and collected performances can come together easy enough and become the mixed milieu of the growth and evolution of a genre, it's jazz. Like, and even Emma Stone makes the lame joke in the movie about Kenny G, and Gosling's reaction is hilarious because like he can't say that that's not jazz, but at the same time, okay, it's one thing out of a larger thing, and you got to see these
Sure.
real ones instead of the one you're thinking of. Where I jazz to me is a place where you can do that easier than if a white guy were to get up and rap, or if a black guy is going to make fun of podunk country,
Yeah, but
because the
we're
storytelling
arguing.
is lamer, different, and more and more rooted in different places. Jazz, you can mix and play more because that's the music is mixing and playing.
Yeah, but
I think it's allowed. I think it's allowable.
we're arguing two different things though, because I agree with
Yeah,
you 100% on that. I agree with you on jazz
yeah.
itself being a multicultural thing now. It's been
Hmm.
enough time where it can be multicultural.
And we're making a modern movie where we can call upon the past of jazz and have the modernness of jazz, and that's La La Land.
See, I would agree with you if the character wasn't so Ryan Gosling's character wasn't so adamant about preserving the purity and
Yeah,
the origins of jazz.
he's
That's where I have an issue.
okay. He is a bit of a an obsessed. He's a bit of an obsessed prick about it, and he's an obsessed prick about it to anybody who will listen and his girlfriend. So that's right. Like to me, like I said, his crime to me is mansplaining more than white savior.
What's up, gang? This is Hoptimus. You've been listening to one of the great new podcasts from Ruminations Radio Network. If you want some more tasty sound vibes, come check out my new podcast, The Retro Futurist Culture, where we talk about alternate timelines, cyberpunk, anime, and other crazy worlds. If that does not strike your fancy, we have plenty of other great shows at ruminationsradionetwork.com.
This is a little part. If you can give me 1 minute,
Hit it.
I'd like to read two little portions from the article I was talking about by Ira Madison III from his article of MTV called La La Land's White Jazz Narrative.
All right.
He opens the article like this. He says, Damien Chazelle likes jazz music, but more than blaming his musical obsession for La La Land, I suppose I can blame Carl Van Vechten. It is, after all, Van Vechten's 1926 novel N-Word Heaven that fueled white interest in the Harlem Renaissance and led to the gentrification of the neighborhood's nightclubs and brownstones. While interest in Harlem and jazz music became widespread and likely indirectly led to Chazelle's father's interest in jazz. Sorry, I read that wrong. Became widespread
Okay.
and likely indirectly led to Chazelle's father's interest in jazz. Fine. He ends the article the same way, and this is part of my gripe as well, and this is where I kind of feel like the movie fits into the Green Book kind of scenario. But it says here, an advertisement for Van Vechten's 1926 novel in the New Yorker once asked, "Why go to Harlem cabarets when you can read N-Word Heaven? Perhaps now you could just watch La La Land." That really hit me because I do feel like with Green Book, where it's saying, here are the cliff notes of the racist experience, and now you're seeing this white man uh, essentially save the black man, and now you can go home and feel better about yourself. I don't think it's as
Yeah, see,
egregious as that. I don't think the movie La La Land is
nowhere near as
egregious as that.
egregious as that. Nowhere
No,
near.
definitely not. And we could do the same thing. I don't think
Yeah.
that Viggo Mortensen would do it. Talk about a guy who takes on
I
meaty,
agree.
tough roles.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think the intentions. I think it. If we're ranking these, the three that I mentioned, if we're ranking them, Crash and Green Book are far more egregious than La La Land. I totally
All
agree
right,
with
there
that.
you go.
I just kind of feel that I was rubbed the wrong way because I don't know if it's my personal connection to it, my feeling of protectiveness. I don't want you to think this is like a jazz thing either. Yeah, do I think
Sure.
that jazz should be universally embraced? Absolutely. I don't think that black centric stuff should be black only. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that the black experience going all the way from colonialism to slavery to even just pop culture
Sure.
has been co-opted so much that
Yeah, all
I
right.
wish I could see that. For instance, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar mentions that he wishes this was a Gregory Hines film.
Sure.
And I think one of the articles I read said that Michael B. Jordan was one of the original choices for the
I can
Ryan
see that.
Gosling role. To me, if you had a black actor in this role, it would have meant a little bit more to me. It
I
would
can see
have
that.
rung a little bit more true.
Yeah.
Because
Well, here, I'll
yeah,
point to intentions.
sure.
This is a white jazz lover
Yeah.
making a modern movie about the inclusiveness of jazz that happens to have a wide audience. And the intention, more than anything, is the homage of old Hollywood musicals with that modern take of an evolved musical genre.
Mm-hmm.
It is not there. This movie, to ask this movie to solve big problems bigger than that, is asking too much. That's like asking shit. That's like asking the Tree of Life to solve all 50s fathers. That's like asking, let's pick all the movies you love. That's like
Yeah.
that's like asking Joker to make a sympathetic villain from a sadistic killer. Wasn't doing that
Mm-hmm.
either. Like, I don't,
Right.
there's nothing I have to fix or condone out of La La Land's tone or approach. Its intentions are to emulate movie musicals in a different era with modern tools and a modern, and yeah, with today's melting pot of people and music. Now, does that modern setting come from co-opted history? Sure, it does.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
they have experiences too. I'm not like, there are white people, black people, any people. There's Hispanic people moved or inspired by any given musical medium. They get those stories even if they're not the purebred originals. And I think there's room for that. Room for that when you could do it in a respectful way. And I see a movie that does it in a respectful way. But I get
Yeah.
where, but I
Yeah.
get how, if you're going higher than that, like if you are trying to solve a bigger thing, yeah, cast Michael B. Jordan, cast cast we're gonna who's our girl that we love, Miss Thompson from Thor, yeah, cast Tessa
Tessa
Thompson,
Thompson. Yeah.
cast Tessa Thompson and cast Tessa Thompson and Michael B. Jordan and make it a different kind of movie. If you want that movie, go watch Sylvie's Love on Amazon Prime. If you want that movie even older, go watch Love Jones with Lorenz Tate and Nia Long. That movie's been done in without being a Hollywood musical, where you have arts and the beautifulness of the Black experience distilled through their times and with really positive takes that aren't whitewashed. And so those movies exist, and you don't need this one to be that movie.
Um, yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah,
I mean,
I got
the
you.
fact that it was such a, I think the other factor is the fact that this $30 million film became such a cultural
This was a big hit.
piece of history. I mean, it was not
Yeah.
only was it a huge hit, but I mean, when you think of when you think of the Oscars, I mean,
Mhm.
it had 14 nominations, which is
Yes.
just insane. I mean,
But then but come on, man, you look at the art and technical and go, how could it not? There's not one nomination from those
oh
14
sure,
I'd take away.
no. That's why I emphasized in the beginning that I'm not
Yeah.
taking anything away from this film technically. I think it is
Mhm.
I think it's almost too technical in some cases as a musical.
Ooh.
That's why I don't
Okay,
remember the
okay.
music very well. I couldn't recall. I mean, maybe if I rewatched the movie and did my homework, I would
Yeah,
remember a
hey,
song.
yeah.
But I'll tell you what though.
Would it help?
I'm just saying though. I can still. I know Chicago was a Broadway play first, but
Yeah.
I can still sing bars from Chicago. I can still
I
sing
think it
bars from
helps that
Sound of Music.
it helps that it has a bigger reach. You're gonna have the same thing happen to you in a month within the Heights. We all are feeling it now with Hamilton. Yeah, those movies are helped because they have bigger places and bigger origins. I admire La La Land because it's not going wall to wall musical. It's got a movie and a love story mixed in
It's true.
between, and it's going highly original with creating something brand new that isn't helped by Broadway, which is also
Yeah.
some co-opted shit too. Come on.
Well, no, absolutely. No, so
Yeah.
I don't, I do think that's a great point. We have been, a lot of people have been decrying the fact that there's not original content, and the fact that this is a musical written by
Wholly
itself, I
original.
believe, is
Yeah,
pretty bold.
I
So
agree.
yeah, it's a weird kind of criticism because like I
I
said,
got
I
you.
don't want to blame the movie, the technical aspects of the movie. I think the technical aspects are fantastic. I think even the acting is great.
Hmm.
Like I said, I'm not a huge Emma Stone guy. Um, I don't
Yeah,
know what it is,
she
but
beat, here's your list of nominees. She beat Isabel Huppert for Elle that year, foreign film. She beat Ruth Negga
yep.
in Loving. She beat Natalie Portman in Jackie and Meryl Streep in Florence Foster Jenkins. If I'm giving that award to someone other than Stone, it's Portman for Jackie, but that's me.
Oh, interesting. See, that was the other thing. I think. Well, first of all, I hated this movie so much. I'm starting to begrudgingly respect it a little bit after talking with you.
Mm.
But I hated the movie so much that when whoever it was that was like, God damn it, Moonlight won. That was like the greatest thing that had ever happened. It was
Yeah.
like,
Oh no, as much as I love La La Land and was rooting for it to win, I can't knock losing to Moonlight. Moonlight's amazing, and then also the hissy fit of the moment was hilarious. Yeah, love it.
yeah. So that was something I really loved. But I'm trying to where was the where's the list here? Okay, so um, we had a very interesting mixture of films nominated for Best Picture that year. You had Moonlight, which won.
Mm-hmm.
You had Arrival, Fences, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, La La Land, Lion, and Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah, that's a 2-horse race there. Everything, well, I mean, everything else slides lower. For example, like Manchester by the Sea, that's a screenplay winner, and I'm pretty sure it won screenplay. Like that's a writing thing more than a best picture of the year. Hidden Figures is your cutesy popular, that's speaking of whitewashing choices. There's your Kevin Costner white savior narrative there. Yeah,
sure.
Lion deserves more respect than it does. Fences is, that's an acting showcase more than a best picture showcase.
Sure, definitely. Yeah.
What else you got in there? Arrival, too obscure. That's your District 9 nominee. That was never going to win.
Don't insult Arrival by calling
it's a good
District
movie, but
9.
it's not the best picture
It's
of the
not
year.
fucking District 9 either. That movie blows.
No, but that's your token genre nominee. Now that here, the dumbness of the Oscars is the fact that we're talking about 8 or 9 nominees. If you do 5, Arrival doesn't have a chance.
Sure, agreed.
No, what else? Read that list again, because your 5 are if you go a traditional 5, it's La La Land, Moonlight, probably Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah.
What else you got there? Maybe
Fences, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water.
Oh, see, that's a Mel Gibson dumb. I hate Hacksaw Ridge.
So, well, I guess the point I'm bringing up is,
yeah, that's a weak field.
When you look
at a 2-horse race to me.
But when you look at the other films that are nominated in there, you have Moonlight, Hidden Figures, and Fences, and Lion. And to me, those are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Racially specific kind of films.
That's true.
They're about a Black experience.
Yeah.
So I guess
or Lion, a foreign experience. Yeah.
I guess with my kind of take on, which I'm not the only one, obviously, there's many articles written about this.
You're going to meet Black people that love La La Land too. Barry Jenkins.
No, absolutely. I mean, Abdul-Jabbar said he liked it. So, so what I'm saying is that I guess compared with some of those other films that had Black voices emphasizing Black experiences, I think against La La Land coming out at that time. Just like my issue with Green Book was that, sure, Green Book would have been a great Oscar winner in the 90s. But the fact that you had Black Klansman and Black Panther going against it, when you had unique Black voices talking about Black experiences.
Get Out that year too. Yeah.
Get Out, right. So I think that played into my viewing as well, because I was like, well, I got Moonlight, I got Hidden Figures, I got Lion, I got Fences. Why the hell am I watching this white dude save jazz? Now, like I said, I know you've made some great points.
View. Yeah.
Right. You've made some great points. And if I was the only one, but like if you search up La La Land criticisms, this comes up a lot, mostly from Black authors.
I understand.
Which is where I kind of feel like I'm not like a crazy person, because.
But again, I look at the guy who's not trying to make a Black movie.
Right.
Easiest thing I could say. The guy's not trying to make a Black movie saving any Black thing. He's making a movie musical homage with a love story in between. If we are requiring movies to save Black people, we're picking the wrong movies. I don't know. Just that's what Moonlight's for. I'll say it again. That's what Love Jones is for. That's what Sylvie's Love is for. That's what Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is for. That's what One Night in Miami's for. Those efforts are being made. They can't be made in every movie. But I get that jazz comes from co-opted roots. But again, I'll back to my original point. If you think this movie is about saving jazz, you missed the fucking point of the movie. It's a love story with it's dreams, it's realities, it's fantasies, it's things that can't come together. And to see as much failure happen in the movie as success keeps it keeps the tone down from being really whimsical and really over the top, because
Right.
in a different era, this movie has a happy ending that's as washed as can be, and it doesn't have
Sure.
that, and I respect that. So
That's true. You know
ah,
what? I think we both obviously disagree on the
intentions.
no, not the intent, because I don't think there was intent here.
Okay.
I'm making it very clear. I'm not saying that the filmmaker is racist or in his intent was to make a black film or whatever.
Hmm.
I think that some of that passion and that love of stuff led to a tone deafness in it was a small enough area for you, but it was
Sure.
big enough for me, and I'm just a white guy.
I
Obviously,
know.
this affected a lot of black audiences as well because they were able to see that aspect of it. Even if it was to you a small part, it
Sure.
still rings bigger to other demographics.
I got you.
So that's kind of where I guess I'm taking their side. I guess I don't know. I just
Sure.
but I will leave the conversation by basically saying that I think we can both agree it's technically a great film.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you were affected. You see the jazz part of it as more of a
Just an inclusionary piece of the setting. Yeah.
inclusion, and so it doesn't affect you. Whereas
No, I'm
for
watching a
some
love
reason
story
that
between two
part,
people getting a job. Yeah.
see that part just stuck out to me too much for me to
Okay.
get past it. So I think that's where we differ on that.
Okay.
So I definitely think we'll see. The thing about we were talking about this on a prior thing about the Oscars, but
Mm-hmm.
let's just say La La Land, it didn't win, but let's just say that it did or it technically did, and then Moonlight won also. But I think we are struggling to find these. Like, where do you think La La Land stands now as a cultural landmark? I mean, I don't
I
hear
think
people talking about it.
no, I think it's a little trophy case piece you keep around to be like, hey, with in the right hands and with enough talented people, we can make a Hollywood musical again. You don't have well here, you don't have big screen editions of The Greatest Showman. You
Mm,
don't have the musicals that have been okay to make since then can thank
mhm,
La La Land to
mhm,
just to prove the concept you can make one. Now the fun part is about all the ones since then is
mhm,
half of the good movie musicals we've had since 2016 are period pieces that shoehorn their politics into modern things as well. Where I know I'm going to sing the praises of it here because it's out, but we in the Heights, which
mhm.
came out, which was a Broadway musical in '07, is something that La La Land can probably thank for existing. But that's also a different thing where that's an original racially centered movie
Mm,
about a different experience done by the people having those experiences. But the
right.
fact that you can make one of those with today's tools and sell it and get it to be a success,
Yeah.
that's where La La Land is. La La Land is that I don't think it's got a future Criterion spine, but that's that movie where like, dang, they really went out and made that. I Here it is. It's the Avatar of Hollywood musicals.
Interesting. Because
You
yeah, I
know
was
what I
gonna say
mean? Like,
nobody remembers an Avatar, even though it was
oh, see,
or
I can't,
currently is.
but I can't forget Avatar. Like Avatar blew my mind and blew the doors off of what you can do with film with new tools, but put it in the most familiar genre trappings that we've seen done 1,000 times.
Right.
If you poke enough holes in La La Land, yeah, you have an American Paris, you have Singing in the Rain, you have Umbrellas of Cherbourg, you have
Mhm.
little things like that along the way, even a little bit dash of Chicago. But the fact that you could do that with single take shots and crane movements and all the modern bells and whistles and mature settings and performances,
Right.
it's yeah. That's a weird thing to say. It's the Avatar of movie musicals.
Well, time will tell as well because a lot of people don't know this.
Hmm.
But when you say "Singing in the Rain," now people think of a Stone Cold classic, top 10 on AFI's list of greatest
Sure.
movies of all time. When it was released, "Singing in the Rain" was considered a trite and
Oh, sure.
fluffy piece of entertainment. It got a couple of award nominations,
Hmm.
but it was considered a
Yeah.
nostalgia it was considered a nostalgia piece that
Oh,
was
for its
just
era, it was a
too,
nostalgia to talkies moving to verbal
yeah.
Hollywood. Yeah, sure.
But over time, it developed into this cultural landmark. So maybe La La Land, I don't want to sing its death knell
Yeah,
already,
no,
but I mean, I don't hear people talking about it. I don't see it in the cultural zeitgeist like you do with other movies.
I
Now, that
don't.
was a weak year.
Sure.
That was a weak year
Oh
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Moonlight was a very small scene film. It was a success, but
But Moonlight's gonna be that firebrand movie that's like, wow, that bold of an experience with that kind of
yeah.
storytelling from that bold of a voice. That movie's gonna be your Criterion spine, your cultural landmark. Well, I don't want to say cultural landmark. I'm gonna say emotional landmark movie. But I think La La Land isn't gonna look like La La Land's not gonna age badly because you're gonna be like, wow, look at what it look at it like Avatar. You could pop Avatar
Mhm,
in today and see bells and whistles that movies today still
mhm,
can't match.
yeah.
And I think that'll be like
Well,
I just yeah,
that's
I
the
just
director too, because you could say the
sure.
same thing about Terminator 2.
Oh yeah, but I
So,
mean, but that's also
yeah,
Chazelle. Like I think we're gonna look back on this, especially of how Chazelle is gonna age, because he's still shoot, what 35 years old.
yeah.
Like if from him to make Whiplash, which already is a film bro lover, like I love Whiplash. Whiplash is
I
amazing.
do too. I like
And
Whiplash a lot.
and then he stepped it like he took Whiplash, which was a small intimate thing, and then blew it into this La La Land. And
Mhm,
then for him to go, tell you what, watch me make a traditional Spielbergian movie like First Man what
mhm,
and then it sounds like he's doing a Brad Pitt Vegas movie next. And like someday we're gonna look back and go to La La Land and go, wow, just proof of his potential, proof of his size and scope.
mm,
And I think we can go I think it'll be easy to go back to that and go, hey, look what that guy did then with less and younger and to reinvent what it is. I just think it's hard to do that because it's hard to have that movie last because movie musicals just aren't playing. They don't happen as
yeah,
if Damien Chazelle were to go make a comic book movie and blow our doors off with something crazy, we would probably remember it more because it's just a bigger genre. And Greatest Show be damned, and even what In the Heights is going to do this summer, it's just still not a frontline thing. Damien Chazelle would have the same problem if he had made a musical. I mean, he's antiquated to a fault, and that's okay because he's made something really good out of what of a genre that's could use a little bit of infusion. So I don't know.
yeah. It's been
But
tried
it will
before,
not.
and
It will always be chasing Moonlight. It will always be connected to Moonlight, and Moonlight will always have the pedigree and acclaim as well because that too was a freshman slash sophomore filmmaker coming out and blowing the doors off the place. So,
yeah, Barry
it,
Jenkins was
and the
amazing.
fun part is if you've seen interviews, those two are real good buds. Like after the
Yeah,
Oscar incident, those two sat down, broke bread, and like those two really love and respect each other's work and what they can do, craft
sure,
and art. So that's another pass I give La La Land is for as
sure.
much as I don't want to say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a high-end source of film theory and history and love, but I'll take the word of Jenkins over Kareem Abdul-Jabbar any day of the week. So,
Yeah, and I
but
suppose you could.
you have solid writers, and there's more of them than and you said before. So
Oh yeah, no, I think no, and that's the thing we forget sometimes
yeah,
is we forget that sometimes people are like, "I'm okay with this," like like
yeah,
we forget that. It, I'm almost ironically being trying to be a white savior over white saviorism.
yeah, I understand.
It's like you said, like if Barry Jenkins is like, yeah, Damon Chazelle's my bro, what is why do I have a problem? But I think it's
That's
because
right. That's what helps me.
yeah, no, absolutely. I just think that I doing the research for it,
Hmm.
I had seen so much on it. Like I said, if it was just me, that's one thing, but I've seen a lot of commentary. I only selected those 3 articles because
Sure.
that's just
Well,
what I was
time
looking
and
at,
all that. Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of them. But and then like I said, I think I was originally tipped off to it with the Samuel L. Jackson thing because
Mm,
he makes it very clear, especially with Green Book and with La La Land and many
yeah.
other things that he's like, don't have time for this shit.
Mm,
So
sure.
I was affected by that because I love Samuel L. So
Yeah.
he definitely influenced me a little bit, maybe more so than is necessary. But
Okay. It sounds like we had a hissy fit in a movie that's not for everybody, but something for everybody at the same time.
yeah, I'd like to know, listeners out there, what are your takes on La La Land?
I want to hear this too. You bet.
Yeah, because
Maybe
I
it's time
feel
for that Twitter poll question. Woo
I
woo.
think we should have the Twitter poll question this time because
Ooh, all right. You're the
yeah,
social
because
media head. It's on you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So what we're gonna do now is gonna outro this bitch.
Heck yeah.
I was trying to find a transition, and that's all I could come up with, so I apologize.
Outro this bitch tends to work as a solid transition.
Yes. So please follow us on Twitter at Cinephile Fits, and on Facebook at Cinephile Hissy Fits Podcast. I think Don is more of the Facebook guy.
Probably.
I am more of a Twitter guy.
And an Instagram guy.
I need to work on advertising the show a little bit more than just making weird jokes, but I don't know how the Facebook page works still, so I'm still working through that.
Okay.
But we do obviously run them, so please follow us and interact with us, because I will. He'll
message you all hours of the night, whether he has pants on or not. It's the best part of Will.
Yes, I always respond like right away. I hate when I tweet someone and then they get back to me like 3 days later. Like, I will respond to you right away. Not that I have anything important to say, but you can also find us both on Letterboxd. Maybe, just maybe, we will post a poll matching this episode for your listeners to weigh in on who you think made the most compelling argument to win this Cinephile Hissy Fit. I think what happens is, when we made this show, Don, I think we had this concept in our head that we were just going to snipe each other and be like, "You're an idiot! No, you're an idiot!" And we actually kind of have. I think we have nice intellectual conversations.
That's because we're two cool dads, two cool film critics, and struggling teachers. We can't hate on people any harder than we do. Come on, we're nice guys.
That's right. That's right. And if anything, well, I'll get into that later. Thank you so much for your captive audience and social media participation. Cinephile Hissy Fits is a 25YL media podcast brought to you by ruminationsradionetwork.com. Please visit, rate, review, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this show, we have more where that came from, with interesting hosts and wonderful guests. These are all available on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. I was going to say that you can tell I'm not the shill that I am, or some kind of strange hater of certain things, because I've been praising Army of the Dead lately, and that's a Zack Snyder film, and we obviously spent a lot of time in prior episodes bashing certain Zack Snyder films, so we're pretty open over here at Cinephile Hissy Fit. We do not fall into these. We don't fall into these cabals or
cliques.
We're not. We're
we
open.
are not Star Wars fans, or like Star. Yeah, we're, as much as you're the Marvel show, we're not one of those crazy people. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
But talk about my man Chazelle, and you're fucked. No, Yeah, but yeah,
I like all of his films except this one.
I will watch anything he puts out. He's proven enough to me.
Sure. No, that's what I'm saying. I could watch Whiplash any day of the week. I could watch First Man any day of the week. I just can't watch this at all.
Dude, bummer. Folks, you go watch it and prove him wrong. Take care, folks.
All right, bye.